Hi, welcome to CafeRainyDays. Namaste, everybody. A humble request to please subscribe to my channel. Our guest today is Blanche Serban. She's a yoga teacher and she's a fine art painter. I'm also going to give you some personal insight. She's also my teacher. She taught me at my yoga teacher training. So, hi, Blanche.
Hi, Sujata. Thank you for inviting me.
It's a privilege. It's a privilege too. Okay, so I'm going to straight away begin by asking you questions, but just a tiny bit of introduction before we begin is that Blanche is born and brought up in Romania, and she started meditating, maybe not meditating, but definitely doing yoga practices with her dad. And how did that come about in communist Romania, Blanche? And if the authorities found out, wouldn't that have been a big problem for your dad and you? Tell us the story. How did you begin? And what was life like when you were a child in Romania?
Probably some of your audience has experiences with communist regimes, either maybe some personal or from reading or right from media. And definitely in a communist regime, spirituality is not accepted. So in an effort to control and I think brainwash the population, there is a very narrow accepted doctrine that doesn't allow for any divergence. However, I think in Romania, the effect of this policy of eliminating religion had the opposite effect. So you ended up with most of the people becoming actually extremely religious, and the Christianity was seen. So the population is very homogeneous. Over 90% are Orthodox Christian. They use religion as a quiet form of resistance. So people would go to church and practice the rituals and fast and celebrate all the dates in the religious calendar. So I grew up like that. However, other religions were they were tolerated, I would say, right? Like just like Christianity. So it was like kind of the underlayer of the social life. They were not openly discussed. So I didn't have a lot of exposure to other religion. Like it just right. So yoga was also seen as maybe a different kind of religion rather than being seen as a non-sectarian spiritual practice. So there were no classes, of course, right? I was no classes, but not only that, no books, no publications.
I mean, there were books, but they were just not allowed into Romania.
I think there were some books, but they were, I think, mostly tolerated, but they were not actively published. So I know that there is this Romanian scholar Mircea Eliade, who actually wrote his PhD thesis on yoga. He came and he lived in India and had a teacher there, and he considered seriously giving up on his academic life to dedicate himself to yoga, but life took a different turn. So obviously, like there were some writing in Romania on yoga, but like they were not actively promoted. I don't remember hearing about it until my father brought from work like this booklet on yoga. So we had a number of practices. It was hand type, on a typewriter. And my guess is somebody translated it and typed like multiple copies. Like some of the pages were quite faded, and included things like asanas, some asanas, like cobra and shoulder stand and half fish and, the triangle headstand. But I remember they also included things like Shambhavi Mudra. There was a passage on diet and fasting. There was a long passage on relaxation. There were some pranayama practices, respiration exercises. But my father was interested in it. However, he had nothing when it came to meditation. So I don't even remember. I could also just be so asleep at the time that I didn't notice. But definitely there was no passage on meditation. So like a little book, like a regular A4 page that had nothing on meditation. So I didn't know anything about it. So my father would do asanas and would do some of those practices, and I would join him. I mean, it was just a fun thing to do with your father, you know. And he was interested, and so we just practice that every day in the evening, before dinner, and then it got maybe less frequent, but every now and then I would still do them. Like it was kind of part of, daily life. Like, you need to stretch, so you do some asanas. And I remember like those deep breath exercises, like from that book, it said that like practicing, the 3-part yogic breath, doing 10 of those full breaths every day would be a great way to manage physical and mental problems. And I remember like consciously like making sure that I do at least 10 of those full breaths. I kept doing them. I remember I would babysit, right? So middle school, high school, I would go to babysit kids, and I would do yoga with them. I would come in and children, like I remember, like would wait for me at the door, and they would go, we do gymnastics.
Oh.
The parents were, wondering what you're doing, but they're happy that like the kids were so happy to see me. But it's interesting how open they are to those practices, right? So definitely I could tell that something was happening. It felt good. I didn't think much about it. I got this exposure to yoga around the age of 9, but even before that, like I could now clearly recognize that I knew about the witness state. Like I remember over and over in my life, like going through, 2 episodes and thinking, I'm expected to be surprised, like I'm observing this. This is what's happening. And now I'm supposed to be surprised. So let's be surprised. And I'm supposed to be happy. And okay, now we are going to be happy. This is what's expected, in the same time, like everybody will react one way, and I would be like, well, that's no reason to do this. And interesting with those yoga practices that continue, right? Like we didn't have a teacher, so we had no advice. But I remember when I was in high school, one day my father came in. I was sitting in the kitchen, and he asked me if I hear sounds. And I said, yes, I do hear sounds. You hear sounds in your head, like in your body. And I said, yeah, I hear sounds. He said, I'm kind of worried. I'm thinking to go to the doctor. And I said, I hear them too. Like I can hear this continuous sound, what you would call the nada sound. And I said, I don't think we should worry about it. And also like we would hear like sounds. I think now I know that was like the unstruck sounds. So they sound at the beginning. So when the heart chakra opens, like they sound like bells or gongs. And then when in a more refined level, but you could still hear them above level, like at other refined levels, they sound kind of like a flute sound, further than that. So my father ended up going to the doctor, and of course the doctor didn't find any problem. They said, maybe you have tetanus, tetanus in the ear, and it's like, no, my hearing is fine, So I could also say that like the sound becomes more persistent, like if you skip your meditation.
Oh,
And I had experiences, yes, when my kids are little, sometimes I didn't have time to meditate, or, I would postpone the meditation, would get so persistent that it was hard to hear anything else. Like it's almost like somebody says, yeah. And actually I had also, there would be experiences of vision, like the vision would get clouded and that would go away with meditation. So like another way to kind of say, hey,
it was
remember, exactly, it's time for you to. Then in high school, like, yeah, so I think also as a result of the practice, also it clarified, it became clear that there was an inner teacher. So as we saw, I told you, like we didn't have anybody to talk with. There was a figure that started to show up in meditation. So I recognized it as my teacher. I never heard about such a thing. I remember in high school, we took this philosophy class and we read Plato, dialogues. Socrates talks about his diamond. Socrates says that he has an inner voice who advises him. And I remember the commentary in the class being very dismissive and more treating it as maybe like a mental problem for Socrates. Like obviously he was quite a quirky figure. And I remember thinking, well, actually, I know exactly what he talks about because I have one too. Like, but I knew enough at that point, like not to make. I had enough times when I make commentaries that were not taken well or just not understood. So I thought that we all have access to our diamond.
right.
It's like as in a teacher for each of us. But yeah, I didn't think that for some of us we don't recognize the same way.
From an AYP point of view, the school that we trained in, do you think that diamond is the same thing as the inner guru that Yogani talks about?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Right.
It's the inner guru. Actually, in more recent times, I study more Vajra yoga, so Tibetan yoga, the diamond path, and there is a clear demarcation that when you meet your inner guru, it's more like when you recognize, because then you realize that it's the present that is there all the time. It just, it's like if somebody is in a corner of the room and you just didn't notice it. Yeah, it's like the practice goes at another level. Especially, I find them interesting because I didn't know anything about it. Like I didn't have somebody pointing, saying, hey, pay attention. If this happens, you're supposed to do this other thing. And I think that's the value of a good teacher, that it could help you go a lot faster on a path, and in this regard, like AYP really points to the way in a very clear, systematic fashion. And I find that very helpful.
Right. And then how did that progress? So in school you were doing these practices?
When I got to college, so the communist regimes, I always been very interested in this question of who we are, what we are. I remember, and I cannot tell you where I found, but I was like quite obsessed with like Tatwamasi, like I knew, that phrase. I don't know where I got it, but like I remember that was like something that like it was in my mind. I would like try to figure out like what's happening. I had this experience of like being more inside. I don't know, I was curious. However, in a communist country where you have to keep people in line, right? Psychology was not a promoted field. And in fact, the communist regime in Romania actually closed the psychology department. In 1977, because they used as a pretext the fact that some of the professors started a research on transcendental meditation. That was the reason to shut it down. But so when I was in high school, I did think about psychology, but it wasn't an option. And then I started studying art. Actually, I started taking art classes at the college when I was still in high school. Regime fell, and the psychology department came back. Life circumstances, I had to make a living, and I couldn't support myself with art. I ended up actually quitting art after 3 years of college and doing psychology for 4 years. I got a license in psychology. And during this time, I found out about a course of yoga. So I think I was in the second year. Somebody told me, oh, you know, there's a yoga course open for students. And I thought, well, I do psychology, you know, I do yoga. I've been doing yoga for a long time. I'm gonna go to this course. So I remember I missed the first class. I didn't know about it. So I went to the second. And that's something that it's interesting to notice, that a lot of time when those opportunities come, they come also with obstacles. Like you hear from students that I tried to see this teacher and he didn't want to take me, or I tried to take this class and there were no more spaces, or right. I tried to do this practice and it was just really hard. Actually, that's a good sign that probably that's something that might be beneficial. Right. Like I'm not saying like if it doesn't work and it doesn't work, right? You try to work with this teacher and he never has time and you get no instructions, by all means, right? Move on. If you find some, you know, difficulty, don't quit right away. Be willing to persist. Persistence is one of the keys getting anywhere. So you want to have faith, you want to respect actually the ethical principles, you want to have a practice, and you want to be persistent.
So by this time, it wasn't a communist country anymore.
The communist regime in Romania fell in 1989, and it took me another 2 years to start psychology. It must have been 92. And it turns out that actually there was a kind of underground spiritual movement in yoga, and this group had been actually persecuted, but I wasn't familiar with any of that. Actually, it was a gym, like go to a gym, and this medical student, Gabriela, was teaching this course on Saturday mornings. So it would be about 2 hours on Saturday mornings. We would do asanas, and it went like that. And I remember after, you know, a couple of months already, like I was thinking, whoa, like it's so much more here than I realized. Like now I could say that like I had like clear perception of the subtle body. I remember clearly that like after asanas, I had to kind of ground. Like I would go so intense into asanas that like I had to make almost like a willful grounding. I don't know how to call it. Like I had to pull myself together to be able to walk. It was so much more going on, that walking wasn't just like an automatic thing. Like it was something that I had to focus on. You know, like it was really intense. And I started to become aware of like chakras and energies. I was asking very little questions, but I was obviously like really into the class. I would take notes, and I started practicing at home. I would practice like 2 hours of asanas, you know, every day. Yeah. And I was working. So that meant sometimes waking up at, you know, 4 a.m. to do 2 hours of asana and get ready for work.
You're very seriously fitting in those 2 hours and being very regular with it.
I would do every day 2 hours. So like if I knew that I had a really busy day, so my day was, I would work in the morning, right? And I tried to sign for all the classes in the afternoon. And I had times when I also had to work at night. You know, I had to support myself. So the only available time was in the morning. And then I had days when I could go to classes. I discovered that this group was having other classes, you know, so I would go maybe another day a week to classes. So then I could do my 2 hours. You know.
But Gabrielle wasn't teaching you anything other than asanas.
Just started. This is like the first 3 months. So
Right.
just imagine that you start to take a yoga class, right? This
Yeah.
beginner, you don't know that much. I mean, I knew, I don't know, 5-10 poses, and she teaches us like 20 poses. She's very thorough. She was focused like on medical benefits and, you know, some visualization, and definitely like she was open to the subtle body. But I remember maybe after a month, she said something like, this would be a lot more beneficial if you also have a practice at home, you know, like you should try to practice at home every day. That's also, I think, a lesson for all of us, that actually we get teachings, you know, but we need to pay attention. I remember after that, like going home and trying to remember, like, you know, the sequence of asanas. Like she wasn't teaching all the time the same, but like I was trying to practice like we were doing in class. Anyway, by spring, she starts to give us like concentration exercises. Like, you know, you are supposed to look at aspirin, like you take aspirin and look at it and then close your eyes and try to visualize it.
Like a Trataka type practice.
Yeah. So, but not with a candle, right? Like something, but also visualization. So that was very interesting. I remember people asking in class, well, what are we supposed to do? Because like this thing moves around, or like changes shape, or like I can see all those other things behind it. And I was thinking, I don't see anything behind it. Like I don't even know that there is a behind. I only see this aspirin. Like I don't know what you're talking about. Like, you know, very interesting. So definitely I could tell that I think all those other years of practices helped, but also I noticed that, you know, there was a difference there. And then we had a different level of concentration. She was preparing us for mantra meditation, which I didn't know, right? Like I was so asleep. Like that's the funny part. Yeah. I have no memory of hearing about meditation. So now I'm hanging out with this group. Some of those people are really like doing yoga probably for 3 years or more since the Right of Communist fall. And I have no memory of hearing the word meditation. Actually, I have another funny story about like not knowing about meditation. I remember in grade school taking English classes. Right. And we were supposed to pick up an English name, you know. Right. And guess what English name I came with right away? My English name was Diana, but spelled with a Y. Oh, okay. Okay. And tell us the significance. Serious, like I never thought. I thought maybe it's like the Greek goddess, but like I'm not into hunting or anything. Like, yeah. Very wild. Yes, but it just, yeah. Just that was the name. That was my name. Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, so getting back to the college yoga course, I had to take this concentration exercise where she put this piece of music on a loop. And we are supposed to just sit, you know, cross-legged and try to pay attention to the music. As I sat there right away, like I lost track of my body. I lost track of like what you call myself. I started to feel that like I'm going like clockwise in those big loops, like I'm going up and up and up and up. And then there was like this unbelievable light and like a sense of the divine. And it was a really intense experience. You still feel it, don't you? Oh, yeah. If I think about it, like usually I have to say I don't talk about it. Yeah. So I didn't talk about it at all for 10 years. But so I could say that like right away, that's like experience of samadhi. And I didn't know what that was, but I was like, whoa, what is this? Like the sense of a reality, like not a sense, you know, like I could imagine blue horses running on a beach, right? Like I could see them in my mind. Well, that's an imagination. This didn't feel like that. So I must have made a real face as I'm connecting with that. And well,
and that just stays, isn't it? Because it's been so many years and it's just there.
Actually, what I would say is more like there is a clear light that shines in all of us, and it could shine through if we are willing to let it, go through. Like if we are willing to become transparent to it, it's in all of us and it shines there all the time. Like it's not, you get more of a sense. I think we practice that it's not like a separate experience. It's like, where would it go? But I would say also, like, I think it's for all of us. Like I didn't expect it. I didn't know what it was. In the same time, I had many years of practice. So I think without having like expectations, I just thought, this is interesting. I'm learning about myself. Something is going on. I don't know what it is, but I'm going to go, So I think we all have those impulses. We all have like those quiet advices that tell us, pay attention here, be kind here.
It's just about becoming more and more aware about what's happening.
More aware and be open to it, trying to be like truthful to ourselves. Like if it's important for us, we should do it, and that's not selfish. I mean, I see that more, that are all part of a fabric. Like if you look at a fabric, right, it's like, it looks like a fabric and we are like threads, but you don't see any threads. It's just like all fabric. So anybody who is willing to put any work, right, it's gonna change the fabric. Anyway, so I didn't talk. I remember my teacher, like, people ask if we want to share what happened, and people talk, and then she asked me like personally, and it was like 30, 40 people class, and I was like, I cannot talk. Like I just shook my head. Maybe it was a couple of weeks later, a month later, we got a mantra. So it's a sound mantra, the same way we do in advanced yoga practices. I realized later that she gave different mantras for different people. The practice is somewhat different. So it's not a japa mantra. It's not like repeating the mantra as you walk around your day. It's more like meditate, like sitting quietly and saying this word in your mind. And every time you lose it, you come back to it. When actually she did, I guess you would say that she did a blessing when she gave the mantra. Like she gave you the mantra by putting the hands on your head, the third eye on the back. And when she did that, I could hear it. Like it was like this rumbling, like a thunder. And then I could hear the mantra. And I remember I opened my eyes and I saw that I could hear it. And she was surprised, like she stepped back. She was like, whoa. And I think she told me the word, and then she put her hands on me, or when she put her hands on me, I heard it in my head. So there was, I guess you could call it, there was a shaktipaath, and I was open to that. Right? A shaktipaath is a transmission of energy. A teacher would do it, and it could be beneficial if you're open to it. And then I started to meditate, like from like 20 years of now hearing anything about this. I started to meditate. Like I remember the same, like, she told us, the yoga teacher told us, well, it would be good if you meditate every day, it's the best would be to meditate twice a day for 20 minutes in the morning and in the evening. If you could do it every 12 hours, it creates like more like a habitual effect in your nervous system. And, it's good to sit cross-legged, and it's good to relax, and you just do it like this. And if you need, you rest at the end. And so I started doing that, and I got really into it. Like I could tell that I was doing something to my unconscious, like, right? Like at this point, I was a psychology student, reading all those texts, reading Freud and Jung, and trans psychology. So the psychology that it's focused more on like developing the psyche, right? Like growth psychology more than like medical psychology. And I could tell that like something was happening, like I was feeling really happy, I was feeling really peaceful. And I think around this time I started to get a number of friends asked me to teach them like yoga or to teach them meditation. And every time I said, no, like I can't, like I didn't say anything. I just like let it go. Like, but inside us, like I don't know what I'm doing. Like I cannot teach you. Like I don't know. Like I'm learning. Like it's not something I could teach. More and more, it felt like 20 minutes wasn't enough time. 20 minutes were going like in a blink. So I started meditating an hour, and then 2 hours. And then I remember by that summer,
it wasn't forced. You were just sitting there in meditation.
I would just sit in meditation. I remember by summer, I would still work in the morning and I would come in the afternoon and just sit for like 4 hours at a time.
4 hours.
4 hours. Like people think that, oh my God, like you are so special, but it's not that. It's actually like when you really let the meditation connect, when you let it work, it really feels like 20 minutes, it seems like, unbelievable, but like, it's not. It feels like 20 minutes. I could tell that definitely like there was a lot of tension that was dissipating, that, my unconscious level was happier. Like I could tell that like something was deeply changing. And in the same time, I didn't know where to go further. So like I would just do this, on and on. So it went like this for 2 years, right? I kept going to the course. And then in the third year, there started to be some demand from the people managing those yoga courses for me to teach. And I didn't feel competent to teach. It's complicated, but basically I was supposed to go to like a different yoga group than the group that I was, going to. There were a lot of other things going on, and I started to get really uncomfortable. Something wasn't quite right. And again, I think that's a lesson for all of us. Like when you feel that something is not quite right, listen to it. And I was really confused. Like it got to a point where it became kind of clear that, okay, I could do like a third year of yoga with them. And then either I start to be involved more and teach, or I'm going to be kicked out. And I remember like just praying, like I got like really, stressed out. So I would just pray and pray like crazy, like pray. And I could tell even like in childhood, like when I had problems, like the way I was dealing with them, it's just like I would start praying. Like I knew a couple of prayers, and then I would just like pray and pray and pray and pray, like just to no end.
Praying to somebody, did you have a clear sort of?
Yeah, it was kind of like Jesus, because that was like the figure. And I did feel connection, but just like I felt like I just need to pray, like, please help me, show me the way, like, what should I do? And then actually, it's really curious. Like a number of people came to talk with me, about this and that. And like all the signs pointed that like I'm supposed to leave this group, right? Like I have a really good experience. I'm learning a lot. However, all the signs are pointing that I'm supposed to leave the group. But of course, I'm stubborn, right? Like all of us, at least me, maybe just me. I'm really stubborn. I'm not going to listen to like advice or intuitions or anything. I'm just going to stay with the group.
With it, yeah.
So the most curious things happens, like it's the end of the third year, and I'm going to this other course. I get there. At the door, the student steps in front of me and says, "You're not part of this group, you should leave." And I'm like, no, I come to this course. Like I used to go to this other course, and they told me that I have not to take this, come to this one. And so I'm part of this. I come every week. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. He's like, no, you cannot come in. Like, you have to leave.
Oh, okay.
Like, really weird stuff. So So he did this 3 times, and when he did 3 times, I don't know, I guess even like a thick skull got the message. So I turned around and I laughed. It was really weird. And then, I get to the bus station, and this guy actually comes running behind me and says, no, there was a mistake. Like, I talked with so and so, and he told me that you are part of this course, you should come back. And I said, no, thank you, I'm not coming back. And he stayed with me there until the bus came, and I would not go back. Like, it was like, finally, I like the penny drop that, you pray for signs to see like if you're supposed to stay or go. And like, like you were told, like he told you in your face 3 times that you are not even gonna get in the hall, like yoga. I could tell you, like in Tibetan yoga, they say that when there are 3 signs, you should pay attention. Like when 3 people tell you, you're supposed to talk with this person, or you're supposed to see this person, or this place is great, but 3 different things show you that, like you're supposed
That's a clear message then.
It's interesting. That's how it works out. So then I kept actually doing meditation, but I had no group and I had no teacher, and I kept like that for many years. Right. Eventually I came to United States.
So, when Gabriella was teaching you all of this, did you ever go back and feed back to her that you're experiencing the subtle body or having these samadhi experiences? Of course, you didn't know it is samadhi, but, were you saying to her that you're getting all these experiences?
No, I would answer questions, but I would not share. I remember that precisely. And I had no explanation until the latest years. There is, like in many traditions, there is the advice not to share your experiences.
Yes.
And it's true, because sharing experiences could be very destabilizing. And when you share experiences, something shifts, and that could be very disturbing in some ways. I mean, in the sense that like you are at somewhere, like this is your practice, and suddenly that energy is not stable anymore, and you have to, like, things have to be worked out. So I think before you get to a more stable level, it's better not to talk about.
So you weren't worried about this, and so therefore you didn't need to go and say to her, oh, I'm getting this, should I be worried? You were quite happy with,
No, I wasn't even, I don't even know if I was happy. I was more like, whoa, what is this? But also, in the same time, like, I don't want to create the impression that I'm sitting every day, I'm having some like unbelievable experience. It's more like, you sit hundreds of hours, and pretty much it's like kind of pleasant, and okay, it's good, and go on with your life. And then every now and then there is like a little something that you kind of pick up. It's like, oh, I guess like I'm not just this body. There is actually a lot more like this. It's like a whole universe, and it's like a whole inner landscape that you could like explore. And where is this going? What is this? And how come that, like, if I do Cobra, like I could feel my heart opening, right? And how come that, I don't know, if you do forward fold, like you feel so healed and nourished, and like that kind of things. I didn't think that like it's me. I thought more like the practice was work. That's right. The practice was work, and if they are practiced, you learn something from them. Like it's a discovery. Like
So moving on to, you come to the US, and then you're still practicing.
I came to the US, and I did apply. So I came to do a PhD in psychology, and I applied to some programs, and I got accepted in a program of transpersonal psychology. So we have had to do yoga and like those inner growth experiences, but there was no financial support, so I couldn't do that. So I had a couple of offers that came with financial support. So maybe I should explain that the magic of American universities is that they allow students, including foreign students, to apply. And based on their credentials, such as grades and publications and GRE scores, they are eligible to be accepted in the PhD programs. And they could get also financial aid. A lot of time, those programs come with assistantship. So that means that while you study for, your degree, you also help professors teach different courses and you get paid for that. So that makes it possible to pursue your studies, no matter your financial situation. So I ended up at Syracuse University in a PhD program there, and I still doing yoga. I will wake up in the morning, do some yoga, do my meditation, go to school. I remember also that actually in those years, right after I split with the yoga group in Bucharest, I started actually doing also the meditation of the heart. So in the Christian tradition, there is this other path, the Orthodox tradition has this path. It's also, I think, very much like a mantra meditation. You use a word or a phrase. So the classical phrase is, Jesus Christ, have mercy of me.
Right. Yeah.
It could be shorter, it could be just Jesus, Jesus, or it could be a little longer. And I have a lot of heart opening and that became a sound. And again, going in a way, through the same stages with a different flavor, but going through the same stages that we get from the mantra meditation. I started doing that. So the same, again, I don't really have an external teacher. I started doing that, even walking. I remember, be really tired, working, 10, 12 hours. And it was working. I cannot say that, I got to further stages you hear about. And and eventually I met my husband. I kept practicing, right? All the constant through all those years is I kept practicing. I kept doing asanas, but maybe I'm doing short meditations, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, I keep with it.
Regular habit was always there.
We all make a choice, right? Life could get really busy, but it wasn't I wasn't doing anymore. The 4-hour meditation wasn't the daily. I would go to some yoga classes, but it's very busy. And life just got even more busy. I met my husband. We got married. We have two daughters, pretty close together. Meditation just in little drops, right? But I remember still doing asanas through pregnancies, meditation and all that. And I find life is chapters in a book. So I had this chapter and I did all this, and then this other chapter opens up, and now it's the family with the children. You have to take care of the children. I remember that we had decks of cards, yoga cards, and we will flip cards and do asanas together,
Right. Okay.
And I remember taking them actually to asana classes, I remember when I had only one daughter, we would go to this Saturday morning yoga class, and she would eat cherries, in the back of the class, and she had her own mat, and she would do some asanas, and then she would take a break and look in a book, and then maybe do another asana. Having open-minded yoga teachers that are not bothered if, somebody in the back brings a small child who might not practice the whole class. But so I'm very grateful to all those yoga teachers who make it possible. And definitely yoga is part of my daughter's life. When they got to go to school and suddenly there was a little more predictability, I started waking up again really early. So I would wake up, I don't know, by 5 o'clock. And I discovered that there was a yoga class on TV. We don't have cable anymore, but there was a channel called Oxygen, and they had a yoga class from 5 to 6. I would wake up at 5 And then I would meditate, and then I would wake up the children. And I remember that at some point, like, I discovered that, like, it felt like I'm never asleep, like I'm awake, like I go to bed, like my body falls asleep, but I'm completely awake all night through. And, what's going on. And of course, you make friends with people who have the same habits. So I went to a retreat with my friend Claire, a retreat close to Kripalu, right? Kripalu is a big retreat center in US, so people would know. And my friend practices in a different tradition, but they are very open-minded. So they say, if you practice whatever form of meditation, you are still welcome to our group. So I had some really deep experiences with her group, actually. But the point is, at the end of the retreat, as people were ready to leave, I finally pulled the courage to talk with the teacher.
Right.
And I'm almost in tears. I'm like, I don't know what's going on, but I'm never asleep. Like, I'm all the time awake. I don't know what to do. And he looks at me and says, well, you should, go to Chicago to see my teacher and talk with him. Like, I cannot help you. And I'm thinking, this is not realistic. I mean, I have 2 small children at home, right? Like, you cannot count on when you're going to take the next shower. How am I going to? This was like after 14 years from my last retreat. Finally, I find a Saturday to go to like a 1-day retreat. And that's like a big deal because my husband can take care of the kids on a Saturday. How am I going to go to Chicago? Like, Chicago is really far for me.
From where you are, how long does it take if you decided to go to Chicago?
Well, if I want to drive, probably, I don't know, 22 hours fly. I mean, of course you could fly, but that mean a couple of days. I mean, we have, at that point we had small children. Like, this is not an easy trip, something that you could do like, a Saturday afternoon, right? And it just didn't seem realistic. But the point is, because I didn't have any other way. And I think that's also a lesson for me, that when you don't see any other way, you just follow the path that's in front of you. I couldn't sleep. So then the maybe thing to do was to just relax. And then I noticed that, if you relax, your body sleeps, deeper layers sleep, and there is still some awareness that's there all the time. Like, you cannot get rid of it. The light is on.
The light will always stay on. And the second thing was that at least you learned to relax and know that this is it.
And it is okay. It's okay. So even if this happened, and obviously, so I think it is opening. I think it's also like some discomfort, because like you learn a new way, right? It's a little bit like with asana. If you learn a new pose or a new way to breathe or a new meditation, there is some discomfort, something is happening. But in the same time, if you relax into it, that's quite okay. Anyway, so at this point, I'm kind of starting to get used to this. And then out of the blue, a friend calls me and tells me about the AYP website.
Okay.
So my old friend from college, who would also join this yoga course. She was, coming to this yoga course. She also learned mantra meditation, all that. She called me out of the blue and we talked, and of course we ended up talking about yoga, and she's very dedicated to the practice. And she told me, and I found this website and I think it's really authentic. So of course I started to look at the lessons. I will read, like, I'm really busy like everybody else, right? Still have like the children, the family, the work. And I'm reading, a lesson or two every morning when I wake up. And soon enough, I decide, okay, I'm gonna start with this mantra, because this other mantra, like, I don't know, I'm not going further. I feel like, I mean, still things maybe are happening, but I don't really have, don't have a clear way to progress with. And this feels like a really clear map, AYP, so advanced yoga practices. So I started like from the beginning, like, take the first mantra and practice. The mantra refines, and in some minds this refined pretty well, and so I just started going to the practices, and actually I would say that AYP really turned the light on for me. I remember when I got to Yoni Mudra Kumbhaka, like, it really felt like a light just flipped on, and then it just stayed on. And all that inner landscape that was all the time in the dark suddenly is in the light. Yes. And then things started to happen at a faster pace. I would say to keep in mind is I keep practicing. Now I'm back to meditation, daily meditation, going to yoga classes. I make an account on AYP, I think, after a year of practices. Then I instantly forget my name and my password. So I make a second account. Okay. The second account was Diana something, right? My name from the English class. And I instantly forget my name and my password. So after I don't know, about another year, I decide, okay, I'm gonna make another account, so maybe I could post something in the forum. And this time I decide to use my real name in the hope that this time maybe I will remember it.
And see, this is another 3 times again. I get the sense that, you were practicing and opening and becoming more and more open to all of this. Of course, not everybody is practicing for 4 hours of meditation, etc. But do you get the feel that you have been doing this in maybe past lives and maybe even sort of more clearer instinct as to, what those past lives may have been?
There is a reason not to remember past lives, because it's like extra luggage. So it's a little bit like if you go in meditation and I remember, all the people I talk with, and this happened, and that has to be done. And and then if you remember an infinite number of lifetimes, at the same time, it could be helpful. Like, I did have moments, especially I think at the end of meditation, we tend to be very clear. So if it's helpful, and if you have a question like, why is this happening to me? Is this a person that I know? Or am I, do we have a connection? Or I remember seeing the gates, on the river in Bengali. I've seen some documentary many years ago on TV, and I knew exactly where it is. I knew how the place is. I recognized the town. I knew the name. I knew it.
And there was no reason to know it in this life, but you knew it from somewhere.
I'm not going there. It's interesting. Yeah. I think that's a reason. A couple of times I almost went to India, and then every time something came up and I couldn't go. And who knows, I'm supposed to be here. I don't know. But then the way I teach yoga, I tend to talk a lot about chakras and channels and sensations and see this and visualize that. And I over the years, I got people who really enjoy that kind of practice. And I also got commentary of you don't need to complicate it so much. In the last years, I discovered actually what I'm teaching is Vajra yoga. I'm teaching Tibetan. So it's Tibetan yoga, diamond yoga. That's what I'm teaching. What can I tell you? Where is that coming from? That's my experience. And actually, your question is related to how I ended up teaching yoga. So at this point, I'm still saying, when people ask me, would you teach me meditation? I would just go quiet. I'll be I'm not sure. In part, is yogani advising that if you know something, you could share. But it was very clear, somebody came to me and asked me about yoga. And I could tell that there was something curious. I didn't say anything. I would say that I didn't say no ever, but I never said yes. But then I remember clearly that after that, in meditation, like this memory came to me that, in a past life, I told this person that, I'm going to come. We parted not in good terms from the other side. Yeah. And I still said, that next life I'm gonna come to you and I'm gonna give you instructions for meditation. And actually it's interesting because he approached me and talked with me, and of course I brought the discussion on yoga and meditation, and I had the AYP little book on meditation, and I just gave it to him. Like I gave a lot of books away, but that was like and that was a turning point, because I did have like this very aware moment when it was like, if you say yes to someone, you have to say yes over and over again. And then soon after that, a friend asked me, why don't you teach a yoga class? And I said, well, I don't have a place. And she said, but we have this big hall. And I ended up teaching a community class. And as I started teaching that class, I thought, well, I better take a yoga teacher training, right? Like if you do it, you should know what you're doing, do the best you can do. From that, I ended up talking with Tristan, and he was working to put together that yoga teacher training course, the first one where we managed to bring it to a closing in the last year. So like even this pandemic had impact, right, on the course of things, because I decided to take online course through the retreat of the Tibet House in US is in a beautiful area in the mountains in the Catskills, about 3 hours away. But they offer in 2019 online retreat. So I signed up for it, and I met this yoga teacher, Michelle Lowe. She's a very authentic teacher in a long Ashtanga tradition. She started teaching a first course in Vajra Yoga, 300 hours teacher training in Vajra Yoga with Robert Thurman. I don't know if you know Robert Thurman.
Just for the audience, isn't he Uma Thurman's dad?
Uma Thurman's dad. It's also a close friend, personal friend, and it's a student of the Dalai Lama. I consider them part of my lineage. So I took this 300-hour teacher training. Definitely coming home, like it feels very familiar, like a lot of things kind of fall in place.
This falling in place conversation, I remember when you and me were talking, you also said you had this feel that this was the family that you were meant to have, your mom, dad, as well as your children. Or
yeah, I came for a very good reason in that family. My mom, my mom wanted kids. I mean, my parents wanted kids, and they were older and they were having trouble. And, there was a lot of praying, a visit to a special monastery. And, anyway, it's hard to prove those things, but then in this family, things come together from desires, and there was a desire in a previous life to have, when I couldn't have a family, there was a desire for this family. So this comes.
So you have that clear understanding that in the past had a desire for a family.
With details, like the flavor and like the habits that you have in a family, and everybody else, and how they fall in place. It's true, as long, the desires create and in every life, like you take like a handful of seeds and you start it, and this starts this life. And you cannot stop those seeds until they come to a completion. But in samadhi, in deep samadhi, we burn the seeds, the unsprouted seeds of future lives. We all carry those deep imprints, right? Samskaras, those deep imprints that might be like really faint, right? Even those start to clear off. At the same time, it is my experience that we come in life like with a plan. Everything is benefiting us. And when we come the beginning of the life, like we kind of have like a review and we agree with this life, you know. So even when challenging things happen, they happen for a beneficial reason, and we were actually okay with them in this life. Like, you know, we were given a choice, maybe not all the choices, but we had like a number of choices, and we are like, yeah, I'm fine with that. So it's good to take responsibility and work with what we have. Like it's happening for a reason. It's not random. Like nothing is random, really.
I would still like to ask you 2 or 3 questions before we finish. But when we were talking, you were talking about how meditation sort of progresses, stages of meditation. It would be nice if you could, in your experience, how that meditation changed, you know, what is samadhi like? And
I would say that meditation, first of all, like we just have to, it's more beneficial to focus on the practice than to try to attain some state or some unbelievable experience. Right? Because in the end, it's that light that shines through when we are willing to become transparent. Or actually, the third patriarchs of Zen said something like, enlightenment happens when we are willing to be perfectly okay with imperfection or non-perfection. Be okay with what it is, like it is what it is. So I'm gonna sit in meditation. Really, like I see meditation more like it's like a vacation, you know, like you go, you sit there. When my kids were little, I would say, oh, mommy goes to sit. And my kids thought that I really just go to sit on a pillow, you know, like when they get time out, they go to sit, and here is mommy getting some time out. So you just sit, like no, nothing, it's a vacation. You cannot make phone calls. You don't have to plan tonight's meal. You don't have to argue with your boss. You could just like take a break.
Yes, it's a vacation. Yeah.
So it's like as you relax, it's kind of like when you go to sleep, like you're really relaxed and it feels very pleasant. And it's okay to feel pleasant, like you're supposed to actually. Your body feels pleasant. And then you might feel like a really exciting kind of pleasant, like a really intense kind of pleasant. And unpleasantness and it becomes more like happiness, and then becomes like really contentment, like you are okay, you don't want anything, and from that it keeps going. And I would say every time, right, like we lose the mantra, in that space between losing the mantra and coming back to it, we actually go in samadhi, like we really touch the deep samadhi. And the more we do it, the more obvious it becomes. So like at the beginning, feels like I'm just sitting here. Oh, I forgot my mantra. I'm not thinking, oh, actually, I want to samadhi. How great is that? As you do, like you notice, oh, I'm back. And now I feel so happy. Like I feel so calm. Like what happened? It's right there. And eventually stabilizes more. Like you start to realize that in a way, like even now you are in samadhi, like it's there all the time.
I know you've got a little present for us at the very end, but before we do that, the very, very last question, and I said to you that it was very nice what you said about seeing divinity through family. I know that when you want to meditate and the kids are little and you need to cook and there's phone calls and you just want to run away from it all, how to sort of start seeing those children and your partner and your parents or whoever it is around you as a window to divinity.
Well, I think everything is a chance to practice, right? If I say I'm spiritual when I do my practices, but this other life it interferes with, that's really not that much. I could go on and on. That's a really nice Zen story in which he says that, like, if you have even like a small disturbance in this spiritual state, in your baseline state, that means that like there are still impurities that you need to work on. This is just part, I think, serving others, taking care of family and kids, caring for everybody else is just the best way to care for ourselves, right? Service, seva. it's the highest practice. And in the same time, like each and every one of us and everything is just a window open to divinity if we are willing to be clear and to look through it. And if we practice, we could see it with our own eyes.
And to end our session, Blanche has a little surprise, little present for us.
I think probably we are going to do a metta meditation.
Okay.
Some of your audience are familiar with, and if they're not, this is a great gift that we could dedicate to ourselves, to our audience and the world. And right, let's do it for the benefit of all sentient beings. So the loving kindness meditation has many forms. We're just gonna do a classic one. We just sit quietly we could close our eyes if we are comfortable, or we could keep them half open if that's better. Just bring the attention to the breath and notice that as we breathe through the nose, in and out, the breath starts to slow down. The mind slows down. And then we bring to mind somebody we love, maybe that a child or a spouse or a parent, a friend. And we make those wishes like a gift toward our loved one. So you could put it in your own words. The phrases I usually use are, may you, and put a name, may you be happy and healthy. May you be safe. May you be peaceful and at ease. And then think about yourself. Like see yourself in your eyes mind. And with the same open heart, make the same wishes to yourself. May I be happy and healthy. May I be safe. May I be peaceful and at ease. And then we'll think about someone who did something good to us. A benefactor, somebody who's helpful and kind to us. So just see it in your mind eyes and make them those wishes like a gift. May you put a name. May you, Sujata, be happy and healthy. May you be safe. May you be peaceful and at ease. And then we'll think about a person that we know, but it's not a close friend. Maybe he's a neighbor we know from walking on the street, or the cashier at the store. Maybe you know their name, and if you don't know their name, just like see them in your mind's eyes and make them the same wishes. May you be happy and healthy. May you be safe. May you be peaceful and at ease. And let's think about someone we have a difficult relationship with. Maybe somebody at work or in the family. and think about their name and make them the same wishes. Right? See them and make them those wishes. May you be happy and healthy. May you be safe. May you be peaceful and at ease. And then let's think about all the people everywhere in the world. They all have joys and struggles. And at this special time of the year, let's make them all a gift, including ourselves. May all sentient beings be happy and healthy. May we be safe. May we be peaceful and at ease. So we could make this meditation part of our practice. We could do it before like a shamatha, 1 point, like mantra meditation, or we could do it, from time to time, especially when we have a difficult time, especially when meditation is really challenging. This meditation would be beneficial for us and people around us. You'll be surprised because we are all interwoven. Nothing is separate. So thank you for meditating today. Namaste.
Namaste. Thank you so much, Blanche. That was beautiful. That's a really good ending. Merry Christmas.
Yeah, thank you. Merry Christmas and happy holidays, whatever tradition you are, right? That's a reason. So hope you have a joyful and healthy and full of light season.
Thank you very much, Blanche, for coming.
Thank you for your service.